Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Speaking Spurs. And me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham, and I don't really know what to say. Don't know what to tell you. Complete and utter disappointment. It's not been a very good just over 24 hours in the world of Spurs. Obviously, we had that amazing victory against Manchester City, and then, well, you all know what happens. We travelled to Burnley, and it just wasn't good enough, was it? And then we had to deal with the emotions of Antonio Conte running wild. So when we talk about the game, it will just be the quick summarisation, player ratings, and then we'll move more on to the Antonio Conte situation, which is much more important at this stage because to lose a second manager within the same season is not going to be ideal. So welcome back to the channel. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to support it with a like and leave your comments below. Apologies the video didn't come out earlier, but as you can probably see from my eyes and hear from my voice and the occasional sniffle, not been very well. I know it's probably Spurs. It just stresses you out, doesn't it? Spend all your time getting excited, unrealistically probably, and then these things these things happen. So it's not been enjoyable. And now I'm not well, which is great. But I thought nonetheless I'll have some Lemsip and other things to get myself in some sort of state to do this video. Although my eyes look terrible. But anyway, jumping into it. So unchanged lineup for the game against Burnley. We know Burnley down the bottom end of the table, scrapping for their lives, which at this stage of the season always makes these teams dangerous to play anyway. And I have to credit Burnley and Sean Dyche. I think they set up really well. We can't take anything away from their performance. Defensively, they were pretty solid. They executed their game plan. I mean, not in the same way we did against Manchester City, but Burnley would have known that we were going to have the lion's share of the ball and should have created several chances. And if you weren't watching the game, I was, unfortunately. But for those of you not watching the game, and this is more coming from my dad, I was talking to him, he wasn't watching it, he was just getting alerts come through. And from the stats of the game and the way things were going, you'd actually think we were very much in control of the game 100%. And you'd be fooled to think we were playing well. And this is the problem with stats. It seemed like we were playing well, but actually we just had a lot of possession and didn't do much with it. I mean, our best chance actually came from the back of Kane's head and shoulder, which rattled off the crossbar. A lot of the players that were great against Man City ended up hiding. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that maybe we've just not got a team of players that are great when we should be in control of the game. When we're up against a superior opposition, we tend to play much better. We are so much better at absorbing the pressure and then releasing on the counter-attack. Then we come up against a team that is willing to sit back deeper and get many men behind the ball. We really struggle to find gaps, spaces, to break them down, to flood them with our attacking presence until very, very late in games, where we tend to give teams like a 10 to 15 minute onslaught and barricade. But by that time, they've taken off the majority of their attackers. They got more experienced defenders on the pitch. And a lot of our players are just too tired to be impactful, or we bring on substitutions too late in the game and they don't have time to really get up to speed and impact it the way we want. So unchanged lineup for this game, which we were hoping would have been enough. So Lloris in goal. He comes away with a 6. He showed some good handling in the first half in wet and windy conditions. It wasn't nice. Look, we can't get away from that. He couldn't do much about Mee's powerful header into the far corner, but once again didn't have much else to do, which you expect against Burnley. They didn't create many chances. Christian Romero let himself down in the end and comes away with a 6. He kept raiding forward. He slid a shot wide in the first half after finding himself in the Burnley box. He made an excellent challenge to stop Weghorst in our box midway through the second half. However, he was beaten very comfortably at the back post by Mee, who opened the scoring for Burnley. And then, so he loses a couple of marks for that. And at the end of the day, it would have been a really good performance had that not happened. And that was his one crucial error. But these are the errors that we were trying to get rid of in Dyer, in Sanchez. Now we've got Romero in. I know he's only 23, he's on a learning curve, but it was just way too easy. Mee just showed a lot more determination. Eric Dyer comes away with a 7. He came out of defence a couple of times to help us create chances, and he did on one occasion. He defended well pretty much for the whole game, tried to fight against the tough aerial threat of Weghorst, who is a player that we were actually linked with in the summer and the previous January. So, you know, he did fairly well. Ben Davies also comes away with a 7. He did well, solid. Down the left side of that back three, didn't really do much wrong on his side. As I said, the goal just came from the Romero error. In terms of defensively, our 3 centre-backs once again performed very well. They're very hard to break down, but one little mistake costs us, especially in a game against someone like Burnley that gets their men behind the ball and isn't going to give us many chances. Emerson Royale comes away with a 5. Like, he defended well, he got in some good attacking positions, but once again, his final ball, terrible, and he then came off after the hour mark. On the other side, Ryan Sessegnon only comes away with a 4. Conte had been praising him in the week leading up to, saying that the 21-year-old just needed to believe how good he can be. But that wasn't there at Turf Moor. He didn't show any sign of confidence. The problem is with Sessegnon, I think he listens to certain instructions well, but he hasn't got that belief he had when he was at Fulham that he can really drive past players like Reguilon does. And this is the thing, he's got the pace to do it, he's got the power to do it, so just be confident and go for it. I would rather he tried to take people on several times and failed than do what he's doing now, and I'm sure there's many of you that will agree with that. You know, we're supporters that have enjoyed over the years a lot of attacking flair and players taking risks, and Sessegnon's trying to be a bit too safe, and unfortunately it's not working because that's not his natural game, and that's not why we brought him. So yeah, didn't take the opportunities to run at the men when he really could have been dangerous and opened them up. Then into the central midfield partnership, Bentancur comes away with a 6, slipped awkwardly early on, and almost looked like he was about to do the splits. He ran it off, played some neat football in the centre of the pitch, but he did not reappear for the second half. So obviously that injury aggravated him and stopped him from being able to play the second half, or we just weren't willing to take the risk to aggravate an injury when we've also got Skip out at the moment. Højbjerg comes away with a 7. He battled away really hard in the centre of the pitch. He matched Burnley's fight in the tough conditions. I mean, it's a perfect game for someone like Højbjerg, really, isn't it? He loves a good old scrap, he's an absolute warrior, but couldn't do anything to really affect us going forward. Kulusevski, he gets a 6. Tried to make things happen from midfield. He was actually switched to right wing back for the final half hour. He had a curling shot just wide. He was actually the most productive of all our attacking players in this game. And he wasn't too bad at right wing back. I think if Conte stays, or if he doesn't, whoever comes in next, it's an option. We know that is now an option. You know, he's certainly strong enough to do the defensive work. Sonny, dreadful, comes away with a 4. He's gone back to whatever he was doing before the Man City game. I thought Man City game he was absolutely excellent. This time, gone back into his shell. He struggled really badly for quality in the final third until the free kick that he had that found Kane after the break, where Kane hit the woodwork. Another night off for Sonny. Yeah, just struggled with his end product completely. And then Harry Kane obviously sent that header across the crossbar with the back of his head early in the second half. Showed a few little moments of creativity. He tried to get us going, but was unable to get anywhere near those heights that he set for himself against Manchester City. It was almost like he had a real big point to prove against City and just couldn't do it in this game. Was he tired? I mean, I don't know, but these guys just weren't up for it. So substitutions, Harry Winks came on for the second half. He didn't really do much wrong throughout the game, but he wasn't able to provide us with any great balls to the attackers either. And that's really credit to Burnley. They kind of shut up shop, as they do, and saw out this victory pretty well. Lucas Moura, a 4. Poor from him as well. He struggled to make any kind of impact. He had a half volley that he sent well over the crossbar, which really annoyed me because he had a little, not loads of time, but he had enough time to at least get it on target. And I think that is the bare minimum in those positions in these kind of games. And then Steven Bergwijn wasn't really on long enough for a score. He came on down the left towards the end of the game, had one shot inside the box that Pope held pretty well. So that was it in terms of the players and the player ratings, which wasn't great. Look, let's just put it this way. It's not a fantastic game, not something we really want to talk too much about. But we shall move on and talk about that interview and several interviews actually with Antonio Conte. Obviously they do all their pitch side interviews, then they go into the actual press conference, and he pretty much said the same thing in every single interview. He was very emotional, clearly wasn't happy, and it's a bit of a roller coaster of emotions for him. Obviously the win against City, he was really praising the squad, talking about how amazing we are, saying it's the best squad he's worked with in terms of their willingness to come in every day and learn, and the energy and the passion. Always said that we still need patience to get where we need to be. He said he comes into training with a smile on his face every day. So we're thinking this is brilliant. And then, boom, this performance hit, and all of a sudden the world has just crashed at Spurs. It was so emotional. And he kept reiterating basically that he needs to talk to the club. Just waiting for this to load. It's being very slow today. So they asked what his assessment was of the game and why we couldn't find the same space we found against City. I mean, I can answer that myself. The reason we couldn't find the same space we found against City is because Guardiola had his men way too high up the pitch, and there was a huge gap in behind, and we have players quick enough in Sonny to devastate that space. Against Burnley, they were never going to be naive enough to sit so close to the halfway line. That's why we couldn't find the space. But his answer to that question, straight from the bat, I don't want to comment on the game. There you go. Didn't want to talk about the game at all because he wants to talk about the situation at Spurs. I want to comment only on the situation. In the last 5 games, we lost 4 times. This is the reality. Not performance, not space, no space. The reality is this. We've lost 4 games of the last 5. No one deserves this type of situation. The club, me, the players, the fans, but this is the reality. I came in to try and improve the situation in Tottenham, but maybe in this moment, I don't know. I'm not so good to improve the situation. For me, it's very frustrating because I know we're working hard, working a lot and trying to get the best out of every single player. The reality is this. I'm too honest to close my eyes and say, okay, on Saturday, we're going to play another game. It's right at the moment to see, well, what is the situation, well, and to make an assessment. Also, I repeat, I'm really frustrated and I'm not used to being faced with this type of situation. Well, of course you're not. You're used to playing at elite level clubs that give you everything you want in terms of players, and you get on with it, coach the team, and results then start to come. Not going to be given that under Daniel Levy. Said, but the problem, I repeat, I'm trying to do everything to change the situation, but the situation is not changing. Someone has to speak about the race for the 4th place, and the reality from the last 5 games is we have to pay attention to not fight for the relegation zone. I think he's talking about stuff that's going on behind the scenes as well as the players there. I think the problem with the club is we're very set in our ways. In terms of our transfer policy at the moment is to bring in young players to develop them for the future. Problem is, you need results right now. And as I said in a couple of videos ago, sign some more experienced players, even if they are a little on the aged side, which I know a lot of you out there don't want to hear. Experience breeds results at the end of the day. You can't just rely on youngsters to that. Back to it. This is the truth. This is the reality. And when this type of situation happens, maybe there is something wrong. I don't want to close my eyes. I want to take my responsibility. If I have the responsibility, I am open. I am open for every decision because I want to help Tottenham. From the first day I arrived here, I want to help Tottenham. I repeat, I am too honest to close my eyes and continue in this way and also take my salary. But it's not right in this moment. You know, he's essentially saying that he's not just going to sit here and pick up a salary to take a team to the end of the season that isn't going to achieve anything. And if he doesn't feel like he can help the team anymore, he's basically saying you either sack me or I'm going to have to walk after we've had a conversation. It's not what we want to hear as Spurs fans, but, you know, you can see the situation's not changing. If anything, we're getting worse. The consistency levels of the team already weren't great under Nuno. He came in, Conte, we started off quite well. Obviously, the transfer windows happened. We've let 4 players go, only brought 2 in. So in terms of depth, we're nowhere near as strong as we were because this means our bench is weaker. Our first 11, I will admit, is stronger on the balance. But our bench, we just haven't got enough players to come off the bench and really impact the game. And we're limited in terms of positions with our quality players. Skip is obviously injured. We tend to have wing-backs on the bench. So when our starting wing-backs are fit, of Royale and Reguilon, fine. And then our backup is then Doherty and Sessegnon. Neither of them have showed enough to prove that they can come in and do the job. And then the other players we've really got are wingers. So it's Lucas Moura or Steven Bergwijn. That's pretty much what you've got there. And then Winks to come off the bench. And, although he's been there or thereabouts, he's not really set the world alight. And he's more of a mid-table player at the moment than he is a top four, which is the sad reality for a lot of our squad. It's a very mid-table squad. And I think it's time we need to accept this. And it's not because the starting 11 aren't good enough. I mean, as a balance as a starting 11, we're in a better place than we were before the transfer window. But overall, even that squad is still not what I would call a top four squad. They have the capabilities to get into the top four, but there are better and more balanced squads in the Premier League that, if they were performing to their full capabilities, would finish above us. So moving on to the second question. This is something new for you. Where do you draw the experience from to change it? Believe me, we are working a lot. We are working a lot. We are working hard every day. I think that we're doing everything to change the situation, but maybe it's not enough. It's not enough, I repeat. For me, it's very frustrating. 4 defeats in the last 5 games. He's now said for like the 4th time. This is the first time in my life this type of situation has happened. Maybe I'm not so good maybe I'm not so good. Yes, maybe I'm not so good. He repeats himself a lot in interviews. I think Tottenham called me to improve the situation, but I'm too honest. I'm too honest to close my eyes, you understand, and to continue to say, okay, I want to finish the season in this way, and okay, my salary is good. But I'm not this type of person. I have ambition. I'm a person who has ambition. I hate to lose, and we lost. I repeat, 4 games in the last 5 games. And for me, I repeat, this is unacceptable. I won't accept this. I want to try to improve the situation and also make assessment with the club, because if we continue in this way, maybe we have to pay great attention, because this league, we can finish 10th, 12th, 13th, the same way that when I arrive here, the same position. That's pretty much all they got from him in the interview, because as you can see, he waffled on quite a lot. But I think it's very important to note the frustration in this interview. He didn't want to talk about the game at all. He wants to talk about the situation at Spurs. And I think it was a fairly honest interview, but he didn't completely allude to exactly what he wanted to say. I think he held back a little bit. So questions have come out now as to whether he's still going to be at Spurs. So he really, needs a proper meeting. But, let's talk about it. What do we actually do? If he decides to go, I think we need a result at Leeds. I think that's very important first. And I think it has to be 3 points at this stage. But he's obviously got to sit down with Paratici and the club. He's also alluded to the fact that when he's worked with Paratici in the past, they haven't always worked together. Paratici's worked against him, which I think maybe he said that because that's kind of what happened in this transfer window. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know where we go from here, because obviously Nuno, I don't think, had enough respect of the players, especially to play the kind of football that he wanted to play. Obviously, Jose Mourinho wasn't backed, which is pretty much why he didn't succeed, and I won't change my stance on that at all. But where do we go next? You can't have Ryan Mason step up again and then take over and steady the ship, as it were, till the end of the season. I don't think that's going to work. So I think in that case, you have to then look at someone with a lot of experience of getting a bit of a lift out of the players. I genuinely don't know. I'd love to hear in the comments below what you would like to see us do if we end up losing Conte. It's crazy. But he had another interview with the BBC and added, I came here to help the club, and if the problem could be the coach, I'm ready to go, no problem. I mean, that's pretty worrying in itself, isn't it? I think what Conte will want, he'll sit down with Daniel Levy and Paratici, and he'll want to hear an assessment from Daniel Levy as to, all things Tottenham. I just, honestly, I don't know, this is a crazy situation. And I think with Conte, like, he kept repeating to people that were interviewing him in other stages. Somebody else, I think it might have been TalkSport, they interviewed him and asked him if his reaction was just because of the pure emotion. And he was saying that I am not emotional right now. I mean, obviously he looked it, but I think what he meant is he wasn't making his comments based off raw emotion. I think, like, he's a very emotional person, and the emotion was that he was upset. But I think what he was trying to get across was, and because he was so consistent in his interviews as well, it's not that he let his emotions influence what he was saying. I think that's kind of the direction that he was trying to explain to the reporters. So it sounds like a very well thought out interview. And I don't know when we're going to hear anything at all. The problem is with Tottenham. And this is where I kind of like what Conte did, speaking so honestly. The problem with Tottenham is they rarely ever give us fans anything to go on. It's all very hush-hush, kept behind the scenes. And us as fans, we don't like that. We want a bit more of an open book. And we've got a manager that will kind of communicate that. If you've seen previous press conferences he's had, you can see he's held back at times. He wants to say stuff and kind of hasn't. But he's alluded to certain things. Whereas now I think it's kind of enough is enough. And this is him saying to the chairman and the board, you need to listen to me. You know, you can't bring me in as a manager and not give me everything I want. Like, nobody's saying he needs a £300 million war chest. But it's just a case of, you let 4 players go, you bring 4 players in. Don't bring me in 2. And he's not asking for, like, the biggest world-class players. Like, he's got 2 decent players in that, yes, I think have made us look stronger in certain aspects of the game. Problem is, we can't expect them to play 90 minutes every game in the Premier League. Like, they've both come in, they're both fit, they both look good. However, strength in depth is so important in the Premier League. Games come so thick and fast. Just having a look at some stuff here. So we've still got, 14 matches left of the Premier League season, and potentially a few more in the Cup. I mean, I don't want 14 games without a manager. Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird that he's gone from saying they were the best group of players he had because of their desire to want to improve. And then over 24 hours later, it's, stating big changes need to happen. Like, what does he need? I think things that need to come out of things that he needs to do going forward, he needs to get more out of his wing backs. They're just not good enough. And I think it may be about converting people, because we're not going to be able to fix it now until the summer. So we know wing backs are crucial to Conte's system, absolutely crucial. Like, without them, the system doesn't work, which means if he can't get them firing and can't convert someone, I think he just needs to change the system. Because, Royale has shown once again that he's got loads of enthusiasm, he's got the willingness to get forward, but he can't create at all. And it was a bit like the situation with Aurier as well. He had all the willingness in the world to bomb forward and backwards, but, the final ball is not there. He's also a massive fan of Sessegnon, but he's clearly not ready yet to compete at this level. Reguilon, his delivery has been so poor compared to the guy that we started with. What do you do? It's crazy. The options are Kulusevski, Mora, Bergwijn. I think that's why he kind of gave Kulusevski a chance a bit further back for the last half hour, just to see what he could do in that position. Mora will get up and down, but again, he does lack quality when it comes to crossing and stuff. We've seen what he's got with his shooting as well. He's very hit and miss. Bergwijn, I think, maybe will be one of the better bets on a part-time basis. But that's crazy. I think he needs to be a bit more flexible with his tactics. The preparation for Man City was obviously very good, but in these crucial games against teams that are going to sit behind the ball, I just think he needs to have alternatives. I think he's so used to his system working because he gets in the players that he wants, or like we saw with Victor Moses, was able to convert someone almost immediately that really shone for him. He doesn't really seem to have a proper plan B. Like, he's willing to make substitutions quite early. We've seen that. He's not afraid to do that. In the same mould as Mourinho, he was never scared to make substitutions. But there doesn't seem to be that plan B that will work. And if he does have the plan B, he changes the formation a little bit too late in the game, where we end up looking better, but it hasn't been enough to affect the opposition. Or what's happened, he's changed the formation and the opposition has kind of rode the wave for 10 minutes and then they changed themselves, which made it a bit easier for them. And like, as we've seen, you know, Wolves, Southampton, they've come to us knowing how to control a game, which is crazy. We're Tottenham Hotspur and we're allowing Wolves and Southampton to dominate us on the pitch and control. I mean, so Conte has to take some of the blame for that with his tactical awareness, or maybe he just feels that, you know, he doesn't know how to get the best out of these players. Maybe it really is the players. So, you know, looking at it, was Mourinho as bad as everyone thought? Was Nuno as bad as we all thought with his so-called negative tactics? Maybe he saw, until he had a full-on summer transfer window, that this team wasn't going to quite cut it. I mean, he didn't even get to make it to the January transfer window, so who knows? Nuno might have pulled off a conversation with Paratici and Levy and had maybe some cheaper alternatives that we could have got in and really pushed for a good balance. I mean, we'll never know that now, because it just seems to me that the players just aren't quite cutting it in games where we should be absolutely dominating, not just possession, but everything. You know, and then January, we obviously let, not just 4 players go, we let 4 attacking players go in the likes of Hill, Lo Celso, Ndombele, Dele Alli. Obviously 3 of them have only gone out on loan, but you took out 4 creative players and only brought in 1. Bentancur is not a creative player. He's a defensive / box-to-box midfielder. He's not there to create as such and open up teams. He's there to do the hard work, retrieve the ball and keep the move going. He's not there to play that killer ball. He's basically what Winks should have been over the last few seasons, doing the hard work and keeping the ball moving in a progressive way. But he's not the one that's meant to completely unlock the defence. So, you know, 4 creative out the door, 1 in. And I think we all overlooked that when we, myself included, because Bentancur is a very good player. Kulusevski is only obviously 21 years old, but looks a very good player and has good experience because he's been at Juventus in a successful club. So I think, yeah, maybe we overlooked it when we were going, we let 4 go and only brought 2 in. It's not too bad. But actually we let 4 attackers go and only brought 1 in. That's actually quite massive when you look at it. Crazy. I think the most important one at the moment is to get Oliver Skipp back. Now, with his injury, obviously there was complications because there was an infection as well. And it's crazy, but this 21-year-old academy product has been absolutely pivotal. And I think it's not just because of the quality he possesses, but it's his attitude. He is tenacious. He's a pit bull. He will not accept us being overrun as an answer. He will not give up till the dying seconds of the game. This kid has so much desire and determination. Doesn't allow the attitude of the others around him to change his performance. He just goes at it. And it just goes to show. So with Skipp in the starting 11 in the Premier League, Spurs have won 10 matches, drawn once and just lost 3 times. So he's got a higher win percentage within the team. Without him in the starting lineup, we've only won twice, drawn another 2 and lost 6 times. So that just tells you the amount of cover and pressure that he puts on opposition teams. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. I know Conte even admitted himself he's been pushing the medical department to get Skippy back because he's important. You know, it's just, his never say die attitude is just so needed within this squad. You know, he breaks up possession, the opposition attacks, quickly recycles the ball. And this is why Bentancur was brought in. It was basically to recycle the ball quickly, which he does, but I don't think he breaks up anywhere near as much play as Skip. And that's all kind of been left on Højbjerg. And Højbjerg and Winksy have kind of been a bit inconsistent of late, so it's been crazy. We know Skip's not going to provide goals, but the amount of work he does relieves pressure and means that our attackers don't have to do as much defending. Now, one of the most important things that we actually need if Conte does stay till the end of the season, he needs to be backed. And I think he's kind of alluded to this in things that he said. And look, there's no way escaping it. One of the best managers in the world. And I know people talk about these elite level managers and say, oh, they can only do it at the top clubs. They can do it at the top clubs because they are backed. The clubs back them because they know they are world-class managers. Example, Solskjaer goes to Manchester United, look, had decent experience previously in a very weak league with a team that kind of dominates. Manchester United, they threw money at it. They threw money, 300 million? Didn't win him a title, did he? No. Why? Because he's not an elite level manager. You give Conte the Manchester United job and a 300 million war chest, he wins a title or a cup. I'm telling you, he wins it. He's not going to go sign Harry Maguire, an aged Cristiano Ronaldo. It's not going to happen. He goes out there, signs elite level players, gets them playing a certain way, they will win. So that is the reason these managers do well. Solskjaer, it didn't work. Like, if you were to give, I don't know, any of the managers in the relegation battle, you give them 300 million and whack them in at Manchester City, Man United and Liverpool, are they going to win you a title? No, because they're not an elite level manager. They're not going to get the players pulling in the right direction. They're not tactically as astute. That's what it is, which is the same. If you sent Pep to Burnley, are Burnley going to win the league on a Burnley budget? No, of course they're not. If you send Pep to Burnley and give him 300 million, he could start to build you a squad. But look at Klopp. He went to Liverpool. Did he win the league straight away? No. It took him a few years because they don't just need the budget, they need time. And that's what Conte's going to need. We're not even in the same position as a Manchester City with a manager change. That Man City had already started to claw their way up there. Pep Guardiola was the final piece of the jigsaw to get them there consistently. So Conte needs backing. He needs time. But the problem was, I think if we don't look like we're going to finish in the top 4 this season, I don't think Conte stays. And I don't blame him. Why risk your own reputation as a world-class manager and look like you've failed when you're at a club that hasn't backed you when you've asked them to? It's a crazy situation. I apologise for the rant. I don't do it too often. You know, I've thrown a couple of silver linings in there to try and be as balanced as I can. But ultimately, I'm disappointed with it. I'm fed up of the topsy-turviness. I don't get why they can only turn up for the big games. Because it's the victories over mid-table and relegation battlers that gets you over the line in this league. You can't afford to be dropping points. I mean, we haven't even been getting many draws. It just seems to me we either win or we lose. So we're not picking up those vital points. If we get a goal towards that the end of the game, it's 1 extra point. And crazily, we are still in touching distance of the top 4. But we should have already been in the top 4. With our games in hand, if we'd have won them all, we would have gone above Chelsea into 3rd place. But instead, we threw away points to... Obviously, we lost the game to Chelsea. We threw away points to Southampton, Wolves. We come out of them with 0 points. 0 points against Burnley. Yes, we beat Man City. But, for example, if we didn't beat Man City but beat Wolves, Southampton and Burnley, do you know what we get? 3 points. We'd be in the exact same position as we're in now. So that victory against Man City actually means nothing if you're not going to build upon it. You would have walked away with the same points from drawing those 3 other games. But you draw those other 3 games at least, we're then sitting on 6 points. Which means with the 2 games in hand we've got, we actually jump into the top 4. So we're just throwing our season away. It's like we don't want to succeed. Absolutely crazy. I don't know. The floor is open down there. Post your comments below what you think about this crazy situation. Do you still think we'll have Conte as a manager in 2 weeks' time? Do you think he'll stay to the end? Do you think we can still finish in the top 4 with this group of players? Or does the board just have to go, accept a bid? I mean, we need the stadium naming rights. That's massively important. But the problem is Levy will not accept an offer he thinks that is under par. But I think we're at a stage where we just need to get a buyer in, because that money will boost us. But the longer it goes on, the less money we've got, the longer the rebuild is going to take. It's crazy. It's topsy-turvy. But that is Tottenham Hotspur. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and very important, please post your comments below. I really want to know what you think on this one. It's such a controversial situation, and I'm sure there's many different opinions floating about. So I apologise for not being well in this video. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Take care, and until tomorrow, after I've read all your comments, come on you Spurs.